Good afternoon, Speaker Blas.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, Dr. Okada.
Good afternoon.
Thank you so much for this interview.
You're very welcome.
Let's get started. Speaker Blas, when you hear the average Guamanian say, I want a better life, or I don't want to struggle as much, what do you believe the average Guamanian means by that?
The average Guamanian is finding it very difficult to be able to make ends meet. It's hard to be able to go to the store and be able to buy the food that they need to feed their families. At the same time, continue to keep the roof over their heads. The price of a home or to pay the rent in an apartment, combine that with your utility bills and every other bill that's associated with a household. They're finding it very difficult to be able to find that, and so that's where it starts in their difficulty, and you compound that with the strain and the stress, of okay, am I going to get proper health care or medical assistance when I need it? Are the police going to be here on time? And there are many the stressors that exist right now in a family home that needs to be addressed.
Dr. Okada, is that your experience? Is that what you also believe? Your experience coming from, everyone you see or everyone you saw over at Guam Community College, or even in your parish? I believe you're a parish council member, right, at St. Francis? Mm-hmm. Is that correct? So is this the same story?
So I would say that in addition to everything that was just said, students that want to advance their education or their skills can't get to the campus. So transportation for them is an issue. And childcare is an issue. So those are on top of what is already there. Those are two additional areas that are barriers for individuals wanting to seek more skills, wanting to seek a better life for themselves and their family.
So these things being said, is this why you're running for governor and lieutenant governor, or is there some bigger reason, or is there something more specific? Why are you both running for governor and lieutenant governor?
Well, that hits the point exactly as to why we hear this on a daily basis. We go to the same stores as everybody. We attend the churches. We go to the parties, and we meet more and more individuals who are finding it very difficult to be able to make ends meet. And we're not just talking, the middle class person. In some cases, you're talking about individuals who even own businesses. As a result of the pandemic, I remember I run an insurance brokerage firm, and the number of businesses that have had to close shop have had to now reduce or even eliminate their insurance coverages. It was a very telltale sign for me. And as you continue to hear these conversations and seeing people struggle just to make ends meet, just to buy the basics of groceries at a Happy Mart, it was really troubling. And with many of the opportunities that should be before us, and many opportunities that do exist, there's really no reason as to why we have to be in the predicament that we're in. And that's why we have decided collectively, jointly, to run for the two highest offices on Guam.
Let me reframe the question for you, Dr. Okada, because in your case, you are, if I'm not mistaken, out of all the candidates that have declared so far, it's you and E.J. Calvo who have never been a senator or have never run for lieutenant governor or governor before, right? But I remember from back in my time in politics that your name was well sought after by both parties to run in some type of office, whether it was senator or lieutenant governor or governor or something like that. And so now you finally made this jump. Is this why you wanted to make the jump, or why do you want to run for lieutenant governor? Is it to do these things? Is there something else that you want to do?
So I think in addition to trying to help make Guam better, there's opportunities that lie right in front of us. They're looking at us in the face.
What are they?
So you think about what's happening in our region. From the education side, we're looking to diversify economies and new industries are coming to Guam, but there are just no workers for them. Case in point, ship repair. We've been working on ship repair for years, and there's still a demand for increased ship repair. Advanced manufacturing is right at our doorstep. And how far advanced have we done that? AI is here. We're not prepping for it, it's here. And so in my experience at the community college and what we've done in terms of building systems to make things better for students, we can amplify that government-wide. What are the processes that work? What are the processes that don't work? And if they don't work, how can we make them better? And the average citizen knows where the bottlenecks are. Why are we not doing something to modernize it and get through the system that we created? If anything, if the pandemic taught us anything, as an example, at the community college, we had to go remote. So everything went digital. Our requisition process went digital, timesheets, everything went digital. After the pandemic, there was some indication that some people wanted to go back to the paper, and the answer was no. We've gone this far, we've made the system that we invested millions of dollars with, we turned on those bells and whistles, and we made it work. And so we're at that phase now where we need to take a look at what's available. We need to take a look at how we can modernize, digitize, and move the government forward. And I think this is a great opportunity for us to do that.
You've been beating this drum for several years already. I've heard you talk about this many times over several years. So is it fair to say that you're tired of seeing everybody not do these things that you've been talking about all these years, and this is an opportunity, being in this team, to do something about it? Is that what you're hoping to do?
So yes, I've been saying this. Yes, the college implemented. So can it be amplified? Can it be across government, other government agencies? The answer is yes. We have proven that things can happen and work better. All it takes, and I'll give a shout out to them, Dr. Laura Souter and Dr. Sammy Betances trained my staff and me. And they said, when things don't work, you look within. You identify what are the areas of underperformance, you find out why it doesn't work, and you identify ways to make it better. You have the solutions because you know what the end result needs to look like. You just have to first admit that it doesn't work, and then work through a process that helps you get to the positive result that you're looking for.
So let's talk about that, actually, because Guam has just gone through a period of, the government of Guam has gone through a period of nourishment, so to speak, more than adequate revenues coming in to do at least the basic things, and some would argue we should have done more, right? But we might be entering a season of decline that we've been through before, and you know about this probably more than any government of Guam director has ever known about this, the idea of doing more with less. Okay. First of all, Speaker Blas, do you foresee that during your gubernatorial term, revenues will decline because of the tourism situation and because of the, what is that curve, that military build-up curve is going to start to go, that bill is going to start to go the other way, right? And then the tourism issue being an issue, the issues in Japan and Korea. Do you see some sort of decline in revenues happening, and how is that all going to work out? And I, of course, after you're done, I'd like to hear your thoughts on the whole doing more with less issue.
Well, it's happening already, and this is something.
Is it happening already?
It's happening. Our revenues are declining.
Okay.
We've put all of our eggs in one basket, and it's called the military buildup. And at the same time, while we had the opportunity to be able to boost in other areas to help to diversify, as Mary had stated earlier, what's at our doorstep right now? We have AI, we have ship repair. There are many other places that we could have started. We could have used some of the money that we had earlier to be able to start to bolster those things.
Those are the shoulda, coulda, wouldas that Mike Nicholas would have loved to talk about a couple of years
absolutely.
ago.
Absolutely, and to the point that I'm going to get, okay? And Troy, you were the architect, you were one of the main authors to, a plan that exists.
The Imagine Guam.
The Imagine Guam, okay? The plan that exists. One of the things that Mary and I are going to bring in our administration is we're going to dust off a lot of these old plans. And we're going to look at it. It doesn't matter whose name was on top of it, what party affiliation it was. If it works, if it's got something that it works there, we're going to use that. Okay, why reinvent the wheel? Why spend $1 million more to validate something that we already know and should know that already exists? But that said, is taking this time and the opportunity. We're going to need to move on being able to diversify and to build an economy, because that apex of that military buildup, we're right about there now. Okay, my fear is what happens on the other side of this apex. What happens on the other side of this hill? And how steep is it going to be? There's going to be a dip. There's no doubt about it, because if you look at how revenues are basically provided for today, almost 80% of our revenues is from federal programs, whether it be military or from the federal government in other forms, from other agencies. Okay, whereas in years past, it was our tourism and the kind of economy and the kind of businesses that we had organically that made up the bulk of our economy. That's not the case anymore. What have we been doing to be able to fix that, to start to move on it? There are a couple of things that I started to do at the start of when I became speaker to start to move those things along with regards to business policy review and finding new ways to be able to diversify just our tourism economy. Okay, we need to move on those things, but at the same time address some of the areas that again should have been addressed with the abundance of the revenue that we had received that should have been able to fix those problems. Healthcare, for example. Okay, other than building a new hospital, is we could have used that money to be able to fix and improve the healthcare systems, so we don't have a lackluster number of ambulances, so that we have urgent care facilities located down south, so people don't have to traverse all the way up to the central area, whether the hospital be in Manila or in Tumuni. These are some of the things that should have been done, could have been done, would have been done. We need to get them done, and that's where we're going.
Back to the idea of, in our future doing more with less, how do you foresee a Blas-Okada administration handling a decline in revenues, Dr. Okada?
So one of the ways that I've approached declining revenues at the college has always been, give me what it is you can, and I'll work within those parameters.
Which was what you said to the legislature every year.
Every year. Yeah. Give me, I asked for a certain amount, and I think a couple times I asked for a little bit less, primarily because of the investments of prior years. Investments in terms of being able to identify federal funds. I will tell you, 18 years ago, the college received money from U.S. Department of Ed. Today, the college has received money from Department of Energy, USDA, National Science Foundation, U.S. Department of Labor, and multiple other funding sources,
and
including Metallica Foundation.
As in the band?
As in the band Metallica.
That is pretty cool.
So whenever the budget came through, the first thing we would do, of course, was take care of personnel, warm bodies that were in the organization. And then we had to prioritize, and it's all about prioritization. Prioritization to make sure that the students get the services that they pay for. And then we identify what the gap is, if there is one, and you go out and you seek additional funding. So we got really aggressive in grant writing. I read every grant that was submitted, and I started to learn where the money is. The other piece of it is you got to have a plan. I always had, if not 1, 2, 3, possibly 4 shovel-ready projects. So when ARA came out, for example, we were ready to roll it out because it was 100% design complete and it was 100% federally funded. And that's how we were able to identify, where the shortages is. We know what the needs are of the institution. We knew that when we had a plan in 2009 to raise tuition. It lasted for two years. And then we said students can't afford it. But what we did before we raised the tuition is we got student buy-in. If we raise tuition 5%, 10%, we will earmark a certain percentage of this tuition increase for capital improvements. Look at the campus. Look at the campus. Students identified a need for the institution. I mean, it was pretty bad back then. And we started to use that money to upgrade labs. We started to use, and these were all set-asides based on a tuition increase. In 2011, we froze it and have never increased tuition since. but we've been able to build facilities, leveraging multiple funding sources. We've been able to maintain them. And I think that's an important piece, because building is one piece, maintaining them. I have a building that is since 2011, built in 2011. And if you walk into that Learning Resource Center, it is still beautiful.
Dr. Okada, how are you going to introduce yourself to the voting public? And that might sound like a dumb question, but I remember in 2009, as a political advisor to Eddie Calvo, and he thought at the time that everybody knew who he was. And I said, nobody knows who you are. They know your name, they might know your face. They don't know that you're health committee chairman. They don't know that you love the hospital. They know nothing else about you, except that you're probably a senator, you like Pepsi, and you're from the rich Calvos. We have to introduce you to Guam. You're running for governor. So, with that in mind, right, this is the perspective I'm coming from. Yes, you've been a household name when it comes to GCC. Your name is out there in the news. Not everybody watches the news. Not everybody follows politics. How are you, and yourself, Speaker Blas, how are you both going to introduce yourselves to the public, and as what? What is it that what is Blas-Okada all about?
Let me start. So I thought about that, because you're right, people know me as the GCC president. But let me take myself back many, many, many decades. I grew up here. I may not have been born here, but I grew up here. And as I think about, how I was raised by my grandparents, my grandfather was the postman in Santa Rita. So I knew a lot of people in Santa Rita by their box number. My grandmother, she was a baker. And I was in my grandmother's skirt probably for a long time. My mother, single mother of 5. We struggled. I knew how it was not to have. The typhoon that came, it was great because Red Cross gave us new shoes. It was great. We played in the streets of Santa Rita, dodgeball on Padre Palomo Street. That's my upbringing. We husk coconut, grate coconut, feed the chickens. That's how I was brought up, going to the novenas, going with the Novena Nino across Santa Rita, top to bottom, every single year. That's how we were raised. My mother, a single mother, 5 kids. Believe it or not, my mother went to GCC to continue her education in AutoCAD so that she can get out of being a secretary and join the engineering group. How wonderful was that? Just that little step gave us the opportunity to buy our own home. Give us an opportunity to buy our own home. So I know what it's like to struggle. I've been there. And when I finished my doctorate, my mother cried. She said, all I wanted my kids to do was get a high school diploma. A high school diploma. Because that's all she had, not even an associate's degree. But every step of the way, and people know me from when I was working at Payless, when I worked at Pacific Western, when I worked at the carpet store, and then eventually when I worked at GCC. So they saw, how I progressed in my profession in accounting. I grew up in the accounting ranks. But it was hard work, and every step of the way I always wanted to know what's the next job and how do I get there? What education do I need? And so I've built myself from the bottom up. I can speak a little bit of Chamorro. I try. I laugh at myself because sometimes it doesn't come out right, but you gotta try. And so all of that has led me, when I started working at the community college, I wanted to know how. I'll tell you, the application for presidency was a trial run for me. I wanted to know what the process looked like so that when I was ready, I was going to be able to do it. And lo and behold, they offered me the job. And I said, wow. I was in-house, I knew the system, and I worked to solidify my team and to make sure that everybody knew why we were there. That's my story. I've been there. I've grown through this process. And I think education has opened the doors of opportunity for me all along the way. And I think if people want to advance themselves, education, step by step, taking the jobs, the low-end jobs, getting educated, get more skills, moving up the ladder, people will be successful.
What's your story, speaker? What's
Well-
the story you're going to tell to the voters?
Well, the story I'm going to tell is that first off, I come from a family of public servants. Or I came from a family, you know, a lot of people may have known my father, but I tell you, it was in my father's stature and what my father did that always gave me the challenge. And I always had that challenge of, and you know how Guam, politics on Guam works, okay? You have to get away from that. I got the position because of who I knew. I got the position because of where my father was at. I needed to get past that, and that's what drove me there. And most of everything that I did, I always made sure that I finished and I ranked at the top, so that there was no question as to whether or not I had received this honor or received that accolade because of who my father was or who my family was. First off, my grandfather was a plumber. My grandmother was a teacher. And so we didn't come from the a family of being able to not worry about where food was going to come from, or whether or not we're going to have a roof over our head. We had to. There was their struggles. One of the things I appreciate about upbringing from my father is that you have to work for what you want, and at the end of the day, before you go to bed, you answer every question that you had about what you were doing, and if you can't answer the questions properly, then don't go back. Don't go to sleep.
And make sure you're on time for everything.
And make sure. Yes, you knew that.
I remember
part.
you
remember that. So there were a lot of lessons that were both spoken and unspoken that were instilled by from my father and from my upbringing in the family. I'm the oldest of all the grandkids on my father's side of the house, so I was always looked at as the individual that had to keep everybody, all my not just my siblings, but my first cousins, all keep them in line. We came from a family that the older people had the responsibility of taking care of the younger ones. Sometimes I learned how to cook in the kitchen at a very young age, and this was for a matter of survival and necessity, so that we can appreciate what we have, and we came from a family or a family that when it came time to eat, if you're not there, and to eat, you didn't eat, and if you didn't like what you were being fed, you didn't eat either, okay? So you learn to be grateful for what you've got, and that's the upbringing that I had. But also, more importantly, is to work together, to listen, and it doesn't matter who got the credit. Okay, so long as if grandma wanted the back side of the house cleaned, okay, nobody was going to take the individual credit for doing this. We did this as a family, we did this as a team, okay? And if it wasn't done properly, we all got it as a family and we got it as a team. So that's the kind of upbringing and that's the kind of that I was raised with.
I'm interested to see how your first branding commercial comes out based on the stories that you both told.
Well, it's a very interesting story. I think let's go back to your two daughters and their jingle.
So my daughters and I, within the last month, we were at IKEA in San Diego looking for bar stools for the kitchen counter. And the two girls sat on their bar stools and pretend they were playing drums. And they said, "We need a fam jingle, the Frank and Mary jingle, fam for family." And so that's how, and I sent it to Frank. I said, these two girls have something interesting, so let's see how we can capture what their thought process is about Frank and Mary and the family.
Interesting.
And that's the very essence of what we want to be able to bring. A question was asked of us earlier, and I don't know if you're going to ask us, what is our platform? But I tell you what, more important, we believe in being able to provide you what we're going to do with regards to the economy, how we're going to take care of healthcare, what are we going to do about the crime, is first a couple things. First off, we're going to listen to people. We need to listen to them. We need to truly understand why it's very difficult for them to be able to continue to survive, why they're scared as to whether or not they're going to get the proper health care.
But don't you know the answers to those questions
Yes,
already?
we do know the answers, but here's the other thing that we want to be able to bring. A lot of times decisions, even from the top, is made from the top down. Okay? And sometimes these decisions, when they're being made, they don't take into consideration some of the little, most people will think of as nuances, but for other people, that's the biggest problem in the world. One of the things that my father ever told me is, if ever somebody comes to you with a problem, just know that while it may sound very minute to you, that's what's really bothering them today.
So what you're saying is you want to give people an outlet.
Yes,
to be
we
heard.
want to give people a say.
But you're not saying that you don't know what they are.
Oh no, yeah.
Okay.
And we broached the subject. We broached the ideas with them. Okay, so that we can get their input too, their suggestions, their buy-in into the process.
Is that what your ground game is going to look like?
Yes, it is.
Where is the organization of this campaign?
Well,
I mean, I know you're not going to divulge too much of your strategy, but where are you guys with your organization?
Well, right now admittedly we're in the infancy stages. Okay, but we've got individuals in the organization that this is not their first merry-go-round.
Okay.
This is not the first go around.
Are these people who have been entrenched in both Republican and Democratic campaigns before?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Okay. And go to the strategy that we have. We're going to make this campaign personal. We're going to bring this campaign into the homes of people, into their backyards, into their garages, into places where they're comfortable. It's easier for a person to be comfortable in having conversation with them in their environment as opposed to we invite them to a field with canopies and tents and have them sit there and talk to us.
So you're talking about the not necessarily the pocket meeting type of ground game, but like the 10 by 10 sort of thing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Okay. And what about your communications apparatus and strategy? Is that something that's formed, developing? And what about money, fundraising?
Yes. Okay. All of those things are set in motion, being put in place. We're going to have one meeting after another with our different parts of our organization. Obviously, with our finance people, with our media people, our strategy people. We're even told what to wear, what not to wear, so that we can make sure we don't clash with each other. It gets down to that.
You have advisors like that?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Do you have advisors who are yelling at you guys?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not too much.
Are you expecting it?
Yes. Yes. Okay.
And it's okay.
It's okay. Okay. It's
I
all
know
for
that.
good.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I almost got fired many times by Governor Camacho and Governor Calvo, many times.
But sometimes you just have to understand that you don't see everything, and that somebody else has a different perspective, and that's important.
So you're willing to accept that sort of scrutiny from your people?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Troy, you had an awesome job, and some part of your job was you needed to look at the lay of the land. Okay? When I walk into the room, I need to be able to be focused on the person. You need to be, you're looking at other individuals that are looking at me. Okay? So you're going to see things that I can't see.
That's true.
Because I need to focus here.
And you guys have this team already?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
And building. And building.
And building.
There's a-
Yeah.
Before I ask how people can join your campaign, let me ask you about the most important thing to Kandit, and it's the issue of corruption. What is the lay of the land that you see with corruption in the government of Guam? And then secondly, what are you going to do about it when you get into office?
Okay, well, first off, I come from a background of actually fighting corruption at the front end. Okay? I have arrested, when I was in the police department, I've arrested police officers. When I was in the cabinet, as part of the administration, I fired cabinet members. Okay? I don't tolerate that. I can't tolerate that because you ultimately hold the trust that the people have. Okay, as governor and lieutenant governor, we need to make sure that our people represent us the best way they can, and the most truthful way they can. You cannot tolerate corruption in any form, and it will not be tolerated. There was a question that was asked of us yesterday. What about the corruption in the past? Recognizing that there are laws that may restrict in some cases or limit when we can go after them. But if we can go after them, we'll go after them. I think also in the legislature, you see, okay, one of the...
Are you guys going to pursue, because I remember Senator Duenas talking about
Yes.
opening up a blue ribbon panel to investigate corruption in the current administration. Is that something that you...
Well, you see, and with all due respect with Senator Chris, there are certain things that the legislature has the power and the ability to be able to do. Okay? We do not have basically criminal adjudication powers. In the executive branch, though, okay, where your powers are much different from what exists in the legislature. Okay, I want to say there's more latitude and more flexibility for us to be able to do this. Okay, first off, we won't tolerate it. Okay, and if it gets to that point, before you get arrested, I don't mind. You know, I'm going to fire you. We're going to fire you because that's not going to be tolerated in our administration.
Dr. Okada?
So I have come across, of course, not incidences that are of great magnitude, but we follow the procurement process at GCC. We've been successful. Our audits have been clean. There have been some minor incidents maybe, and corrective action is taken immediately. And so, I mean, if there's something wrong with the procurement process, the current process works for us. It's the same process everybody else uses, but it requires a lot of planning. You can't just put out a request for a proposal 2 weeks before you need the services or before you need the products. And so that requires a lot of planning. So early on with our procurement office, one of the first things I did is get a whiteboard and tell me every contract that's expiring and back it up, how many months it's going to take you to renew it, and work it appropriately, because we can't be in a situation where we're in the best interest of the government to move a procurement forward that is rushed, because that's not how it's supposed to work. So we had the employees look at their systems to figure out how they can improve their processes so that we don't get caught up against a wall. Last thing I need is to find out of, something in the news. And so, we put safeguards in place and make sure that, people are aware of what their responsibilities are and held accountable when something goes awry.
So GCC might be, and to your credit, of course, as the leader of GCC this whole time, right? GCC might be one of those rare examples of a professional government agency that has probably not experienced what the rest of the government of Guam experiences. Do you recognize that, at least throughout the remainder of the government of Guam, there absolutely has been a perennial issue, and it doesn't matter whether it's a Democrat or a Republican who is in Adelup, and it doesn't always come from Adelup, that there are problems with cronyism, with bid rigging, with political patronage that goes from Adelup or somewhere else. It's just such an entrenched problem within the government of Guam that it skews the regular public's confidence in the capacity of the government and its leaders to do things honestly. Is this something that you recognize happens?
So I can only say that I, read it in the news and people bring things forward.
But you hear it from people, right?
I hear it from some people, but, and then I go back and say, well, what was it in that solicitation that made it convenient? I review every scope of work for GCC before it goes out. Every scope of work. I don't have the expertise in all of this, but there's certain consistencies that I look for in terms of how much time do they have to, how clear are our specifications.
You think you'll be able to by, for lack of a better term, by doing your homework or just by doing the work required, clamp down or remove these gaps that are causing or that provide opportunities for corruption?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And if it requires more training, even if you just completed the training, then get training again. Get training again, because the last thing you want is, people in the business community, they spend a lot of time and money putting together proposals. They spend a lot of time. It costs a lot of money to do that. So they want a fair shake at it. Give them that opportunity. Follow the procurement rules. And like I said, if there's some little, there's a nuance that need to be fixed. There's been certain bids that we issued that, were questionable. It's okay, we'll cancel the bid so we make it clear. But again, it goes back to that timeline. Make sure you have enough time so that you're not just awarding a 1-month contract and then another 1-month contract, because that's not how it's supposed to work. You need to plan way in advance, including time for any disruption, to ensure that services continue. For example, grass cutting, trash pickup. I mean, those are common things that should not go without a contract, should be consistently. I mean, you got to have it on your radar. How is the last contract? How does it affect the new contract? What new laws are, changed that require us to either, what are the requirements? What are the new specifications in terms of, because the company has additional fees imposed by solid waste, for example, how are you able to do that? Security services. I mean, we do all of those contracts all the time.
Or more fundamentally, is the grass being cut and who's monitoring it, or is the trash being picked up?
And that's another thing, is there's always been, and we've always done, notice to cure. Notice to cure. You've got 10 days to come, and because we have people monitoring the projects. Program coordinators monitoring programs, monitoring contracts. Even the bathrooms, cleaning the bathrooms, monitoring the bathrooms to make sure that the cleaner came in twice a day or 3 times a day, once a day if it's administration, 2 or 3 times a day where the heavy traffic is down on campus. It's all part of building the system so that you can monitor and be held accountable for it. But we've got people that do that.
Mr. Speaker, but
I want to add to that, because we're talking about a system that already exists within the government that follows the same rules, the same laws, the same procedures that should be followed by every other agency.
You're talking about GCC.
GCC, okay? So if GCC is able to do this with less and do it more efficiently, okay, why can't it be emulated in other areas? Okay? There's nothing in the laws that basically preempt or give GCC a one-up on as opposed to all other agencies. They follow the same rules and the procedures and regulations as everybody else does.
The difference is management.
The difference is management.
Yeah.
But our minimum purchase is $500.
Oh.
Not $10,000.
Not
$500. $500.
Which makes things a little more.
Anything over $500 requires
3 quotes.
3 price quotes. $500.
Why did it stay that way at GCC when it changed everywhere else?
Because of their federal funding, because other entities' federal funding.
I see.
But even with the $500, anything excess, okay, so you think smart, work smart. All the stuff that you buy on a regular basis, indefinite quantity bid, you buy off the bid. If one department needs Post-its and one department needs folders, you pull it right off the indefinite quantity bid, which we do almost every 6 months. Computers, same thing. You can't go off the bid that is already there. We set it up so that when you need a computer, process a requisition, because the bid process is already done. We do that for supplies, cleaning materials, we do that for computers. So when you do that, it makes it more efficient. Your individuals that are working to process requisitions, they don't have to keep calling individuals. Some businesses don't want to respond to the government of Guam because we don't pay on time. GCC pays on time. And that's a problem, that's a problem that I hear. That's why people don't want to. But if you set up a system where people can trust that you're going to procure fairly, that you're going to process, and when they deliver, that you're going to pay them on time, then they're going to have trust back in the government and they're going to want to come and do business. And maybe that's the reason why some of the things that we buy are expensive, because it costs money for them not to be paid for 60, 90, 120 days.
I'm glad you brought this issue up because it's a nexus to a political issue dealing with businesses. One of the things that I'm hearing, talking among political people, right, is that there are a bunch of businesses who now feel like they want to become more invested in the gubernatorial campaign because you have joined the campaign. And it's because they feel that with other camps, they would not have received a fair shake in their administration because of one thing or another. So you want to talk about that? Yeah, I know you just talked about, some businesses, they don't trust the government because they feel that they're not going to get paid. There are businesses who don't trust the government or who don't trust a certain candidate or whatever because of who the candidate is and their feeling about that candidate. Are you guys getting a bunch of businesses coming into your campaign?
So I think one of the things I want to understand is, what is the issue? What is the issue? Is it the scope? Is it how the bids are evaluated?
I think it's an issue of fairness. That these
Okay,
businesses
but
are.
if you follow the scope and you have a process of evaluation that is fair based on prior history, based on ability to deliver, based on best price, best quality, I think if you have a system in place, people can, sometimes they can say, well, that's not necessarily how it should be evaluated. So that's where we need to understand, what are the issues? How is it that you're not able to get this kind of contract? Have you examined the contract 5 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago, and here's the scope? How is it different? So those are the processes. Like I said, I review every scope of work, whether it be building construction, procuring laptops, whether it be security cameras, whether it be electric vehicles, solar panels. I review all of those. Again, I'm not an expert on it, but I know that there's certain components. When you identify a brand, you say or equivalent to. In other words, you know what the bells and whistles need to be, and it doesn't have to be this brand, but it's a baseline so that individuals who are bidding know what I'm looking for. Know what I'm looking for. So even if you don't sell that brand, you can find something that meets that minimum requirement so that they can bid.
And I think to answer the questions, we're going to bring the transparency and the accountability, but also the communications. Okay, as I had stated earlier, one of the things that when I became speaker, I impaneled 2 different commissions. One of them was bring the business community in. We've all heard the horror stories of businesses having problems, dealing with the government. What are those problems? How do they exist? One of the first things they talked about is the procurement process. We put together a forum then, okay, where we combine the private sector with the public sector, okay, so that we can talk about these problems face to face and come up with the solutions. As a result of this, there are certain pieces of legislation that are going through the legislative process right now to be able to address these things. But it comes back to having that ability to have a fair and an honest communication dialogue so that we can move on these processes. Okay? They pay the taxes. They help provide the funding to run the government. So I think the government has the responsibility to be able to make sure that this industry or this sector that we need to rely on is still up and running and is surviving and is working in partnership with you. I think that's where we're finding many business owners, many people who want to be able to, who are backing our candidacy, recognize and realize that with this candidacy, that's what you should expect.
Speaker Blas, why should a registered voter vote in the Republican primary? Is it August 1st, I think it is?
It's August 1st.
On August 1st for you and Mary Okada.
Well, first off, again, Mary and I, we come from different backgrounds, but with the same love and the same ideals of how we need to make Guam better, okay? And we give you the platform, we give you the opportunity to be able to not just join a movement, but be a part of the movement. Be a part of the process that is going to bring Guam to the next level, make Guam better. The only way that's going to happen is if the people, is we have that conversation with the people join us in that conversation. That's what Frank and Mary provide to you. That's what they offer to you, okay? And we're going to continue to do this. We love our island, okay? Just as much as everybody else does, but we want to be able to now include the island, the people of the island, as part of the conversation, a part of the process.
My
Dr.
turn.
Okada? Yes, you're
Okay, so you got to take a look at it from the experience that we both have. Speaker Blas has the legislative governance. I have a different type of governance at the institution, quite similar because of the process that we use to make decisions at the college. But I think the key point is my experience in implementation, identifying problems, discussing, finding solutions, and actually implementing things. Our strategic plan, I've been through 3 strategic plans while I was at the institution. The new strategic plan is ready to roll out. The strategic plan was the basis of my evaluation for 18 years. So if the organization identified that these are the key goals and activities that we needed to do, we all worked towards those goals. Every administrator, every faculty, and myself were evaluated based on our strategic plan. And we saw how we can track the results of that plan. So from the policy side all the way through implementation, I think that's the strength that Speaker and I have. We've been there. We've been tried. We've had instances where things didn't work well, but you pick it up, figure out how to fix it, make it better, move it forward. You don't just stop. You don't just stop. So I think in terms of identifying problems, finding solutions, and actually implementing it is probably what elevates us because of our experience through the past many years, many decades.
You just brought up something, and this is it just gave me a little bit of PTSD from my time at Adelup, so I need to ask this question. How do you deal with failure in your professional lives? And I think it's an important question because it raises an issue of transparency and accountability in leadership and how you would react as governor. I'll give you an example. I remember Frank Ariola. He was the chief of staff for Eddie Calvo at the time. He sent an email about a political event, and he sent it to a whole bunch of people. He accidentally sent it to, I think it was Leo Casil's public health email address, which was a violation of the that mini hatch law. Mini hatch law. And so a reporter got a hold of it and started asking us, mini hatch. And my advice to Frank was just say you're sorry. And legal counsel was saying, don't say that because you might be charged with the crime. And I said, who cares? The public's going to think that's ridiculous. Just say you're sorry. And are you really sorry? You say, yes, this was really a mistake. That's an example, right, of a decision that had to be made at Adelup that caused some consternation, but based on a failure, based on a mistake. How do you guys handle failure and mistake in your jobs now? And is that your plan to handle things over at Adelup? I don't know.
You own it. You own the mistake, okay? Now,
when's the last time you owned a mistake in your job as speaker?
I think that, I think it was about 2 sessions ago, okay, where I made a ruling. Okay, and I took a break because there was the question of what my ruling was, and I went to the legal counsel and I said, give me the guidance on how to be able to do this. And they said, Speaker, we know what you want to do, but the process of which you're doing it is wrong.
Okay.
So I said,
and you admitted it?
And I admitted it.
Okay.
I admitted it.
Interesting. And that was a public thing.
It was a public thing. Okay. And I admitted it. Troy, it goes back to the more you're going to try to hide it, the worse the issue becomes. Then the ant becomes
well, regular
a mountain.
people know that, Mr. Speaker, but politicians have a tendency to.
Well, then this is where Mary and I aren't your atypical politician. Okay. I have found, and many of the things that I've done, first off, we're human. We're bound to make mistakes. And there are ways to be able to mitigate, first off, making the mistake, but then when you do make the mistake, the best way to do it is to own it. Because in owning it, you also own the responsibility of learning from it.
With the white hot light of the media shining on you as the governor and the lieutenant governor of Guam, you feel that you'll be able to own the mistakes that you made?
Yes.
I tell you, saying sorry is hard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Saying sorry is hard, but it doesn't make it better not to say sorry.
Yeah.
As long as you learn from the mistake, pick yourself up, and do the right thing after that. Do the right thing after that. I mean, I coach students in the Executive Leadership Development Program. And I said, I can't rewrite my past, nor can you. But you don't need to keep dwelling on it. I'm here where I am now, doing what I do best, and making sure that going forward, I'm able to continue to do what I do best. And I think everything from everybody's past, if you're able to pick yourself up and you're able to move positively forward, you've done your job.
Yeah.
You've owned it, even though you don't have to tell everybody you owned it. Just by picking yourself up and moving forward, I think is a best testament that says people can change, and people will change if they want to change.
Thank you so much.
And
for
you know,
tuning in.
to add to that,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
okay, you have the ability to be able to own it. Some people don't. Okay, remember one of the areas that I dealt with in years past was with the Make-A-Wish Foundation. I'll tell you a little story to end this thing. And I think I shared this with you at one point in time. I remember there was at one point in time the Juanita, the secretary for the chief of staff back in the Camacho Moylan days, came running into my office and saying the deputy and the chief were at each other because of an argument. And can you go and calm them down? I did. I went in and decided, I says, what's going on? Okay, and there was an argument about payroll. Remember back in the day when on Wednesdays we had to figure out how to be able to make payroll by Friday?
Yes, because of the consent decree.
Exactly, okay?
$1 Million Friday, was that what it's called? $1 Million Mondays.
$1 Million Mondays,
Yeah.
but whatever it was, okay? So to calm them down, I said, guys, you need to get out of this office for a little bit and go with me to an event. They jumped into my car. I said, where are we going? He says, we're going to the Make-A-Wish office. And they go, what are we going to do there? He says, you're going to help me grant a wish. And brought him in, and the chief and the deputy helped me to grant a wish for a little boy who had a congenital heart disease, whose desire was to go meet Derek Jeter in the New York Yankees. Okay. They helped me provide the wish. Afterwards, they were done. He says, thank you very much. That was very heartwarming. I said, that little boy is dying. That little boy, maybe this is the best and the only opportunity for him to have a little smile on his face is to see his sports idol. What's your problem? And why can't you own up to it? So mine comes from the experience of having to see the difference between having the ability to do something and not having the ability at all. Okay.
Is it Frank and Mary, or is it Blas-Okada?
It's Frank and Mary Blas-Okada.
We're going to see the billboards?
The billboards will be Blas-Okada.
Blas-Okada,
Right.
okay. When are they going up, if you don't mind?
As we speak, they're being worked on right now.
Really? There's a crew going out right now?
Well, I don't want to say going out right now, but I know that they're being constructed right now.
Like,
That was one of my favorite parts about a campaign, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Was
Was building?
the lollipops.
Right. Oh,
building the
okay.
lollipops and then canvassing. But actually,
Right.
my very favorite thing about campaigning is canvassing. Yeah, I love that. You guys, but I'm not going to campaign for anybody. How can people join the Blas-Okada campaign?
We have now our website's going to be coming up, blas-okada.com.
Okay.
Okay. In the very new, we will start to have also our social media presence, as well as traditional media presence, complete with the phone numbers and everything to be able to get a hold of us.
So once that is out, there'll be a phone number for people to call,
Right.
and then that's how they can volunteer, or they can IG or Facebook message.
Yes.
whatever
IG's
social-
already up and running.
Oh, IG's
Blas-Okada's already there,
So
so please
people can
follow
message
us.
there.
Yes.
Yes.
So follow Blas-Okada
Okada.
on Instagram. And if you would like to volunteer for Blas-Okada or have some questions for Blas-Okada,
Sure.
you can message the Instagram
That's
page
correct.
now, and someone's always monitoring it
Yeah.
within reasonable hours.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, yes.
And we'll
Okay.
put more information up as it becomes available
All
for
right,
all
what-
the activities.
And when is the next campaign event, and where is it?
That's to be determined right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's probably a fundraiser, right? It's definitely a fundraiser.
I mean, it's a matter of getting people together so that we can have a conversation.
Got it.
Not necessarily a fundraiser.
Dr. Okada,
Thank
Speaker
you.
Blas, thank you so much. God bless you both. And
Frank
have
and
fun.
Mary,
Frank and Mary,
Thank
have
you.
fun.
thank
Have
you.
fun. Yes. Thank you very much.